Put your goddamn headphones on, man. You're listening to the Mink and the Monk podcast.
What's happening, Brad? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. We just had an awesome interview with Scott Petito.
That was a lot of fun.
I love talking to Scott.
I love talking to Scott. I don't really like him as a person, but I really enjoy talking to him.
Yeah, I like talking to Scott. I don't like talking to you that much, but it gets me talking to Scott, you know?
I do know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You share the sentiment?
Yeah.
Cool.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah. Well,
you had something you wanted to talk about. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. No, I mean, then, you know, Scott stuff was cool. That episode will be coming out in the next week or so when this comes out.
That's right.
But, you know, we talked about some great things with Scott. We talked about the great Dave Brubeck, the great Chick Corea. We talked about some
John Scofield.
Yeah, John Scofield.
Jack DeJohnette.
Yeah, the group Hudson. They have that's recorded with Scott at his great studio over in Catskill.
Yep.
We talked about Scott's amazing last album, Rainbow Gravity. Check it out if you haven't heard it. Amazing cast of players on there. We talked about a lot of the players, but in particular the drummers like Omar Hakim, Jack DeJohnette, Peter Erskine, and Simon Phillips. So a lot of really cool topics we touched on, and Scott is a badass. So
Scott's
look
great.
out for that episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, what are you doing with the chair, dude?
I just didn't want to look like it wasn't hanging out with us.
He's still kind of here in spirit. His coffee's still here. He didn't even drink it.
He didn't even drink it.
I'm tempted to drink it. I'm an addict. I don't know if you knew that.
Please have
I'm not gonna. I've drinking enough. I'm buzzing already.
I'm buzzing too. Yeah, it's been a lot of caffeine today.
But yeah, how you doing? How you feeling today?
I'm doing good. I'm a little. I feel great.
Yeah.
Had a lovely breakfast with you, and
yeah. I love corned beef hash.
Corned beef hash.
Love that stuff.
Yeah.
It's my fuel for the show.
Yeah.
You think Hormel will sponsor us? Hormel, if you want to sponsor. Yeah, man, I'm feeling good too. I've been having a busy week, so I've been a little, on edge. And today was just what I needed. This is a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, well, for me too. And it's been a long week of traveling and teaching and playing, and it's nice to just be off.
Yeah.
I know that you had to drive down here, but
yep,
I didn't.
Yeah, well, you got the studio, so lucky for you.
Lucky for me. That's right.
We were having a nice talk before. I thought we could touch on this a little bit.
Let's touch it.
We were talking about people vibing, people being assholes. One could say. I just got a place in the city recently. Yeah. And I need to start going out to the jams. I need to start meeting more people. I know some people down there, but I got to go out and I got to get my ass handed to me, because that's one of the best things you could do to learn stuff. Yep. And it's scary down there, Matt. There's some bad dudes down there. They can play their butts off. Yeah. And I think I've told you a bit about this, but I had a gig. It was my first gig in the city. I've gigged down there with people from upstate New York, but my first time getting recommended for just a random gig in the city with people I didn't know was it was months ago, probably spring of this year. I can't remember exactly when, but I got recommended for a little trio restaurant gig, very laid back thing. Very late notice. I found out like the night before, and it was, and I had to make the drive down, and it was supposed to be me, a vocalist, and a keyboardist, and it was my first gig on Upright since the pandemic had started. It's a little rusty. I'm more of an electric bassist to begin with. But you know what? I like the challenge. Yeah. I went down there. I was like, all right, time to learn some stuff in the big apple. Oh. And I get down there. These fellas that I don't know, I'm looking forward to meeting them. Yeah. I'm looking forward to playing some standards and whatnot. And it's the vocalist's gig. And he does not show up. Oh. He ended up being 2 hours late to the gig.
His own gig?
Yeah. Apparently he just works that way. I don't know. You know, whatever. I was a little stressed at first.
Yeah,
I will say, but the keyboardist had worked with him before and was very reassuring to me. Mm-hmm. And as the gig went on, I realized the keyboardist was a bad dude. In a
good way.
Yes. Yeah. He could play his ass off, and I loved it. He sounded so good. I found out later he's a regular in the scene down there. He's playing at Smalls. He's got his own group. He's hitting up the jams, and I could tell from his playing, he knows his shit.
Yeah.
And the way the gig started, since we didn't have the singer that was supposed to be there, he like sent us some text like, play tunes till I get there, like whatever. It was weird, but it was like, okay, we're just gonna play duo. And right off the bat, keyboardist calls like 4 or 5 tunes, really obscure standards that I don't know, and I feel dumb right off the bat. And he's like, okay, you pick the tunes.
Well, that was kind.
Yeah. And I didn't want to, be like Blue Bossa, take the A Train. I didn't want to be super basic, so I'm trying to pull out stuff that's a little more out
Those are
there.
great tunes.
I know, I love them, but I don't want to go straight there. I have my own favorites, the more out there stuff. But I quickly realized that I was not up to par for this gig, man. This guy spent this gig schooling me, and he every wrong chord I hit, he could hear it, and he would tell me.
Yeah.
It was a low pressure gig. No one really paying attention. Yeah. But he would say it. And so he's like, I don't know if that's right. Look at me. He was very frank with me. He would go as far as to stop mid song. He would stop and be like, let's do the bridge again. Drop time, middle of the song. And I was very embarrassed. And I was getting in my head, and it was probably making me mess up more. And it was a rough gig. I had a rough go of it. But you know what? I dug it.
Yeah.
Because I told people about it after, because it was kind of a funny situation, and they were all like, oh my God, I hate when people vibe. I hate when people vibe on the gigs. It's like, that's not cool. He should have been a little more understanding of you, which I get.
I thought that sounded like he was very understanding and was giving you the right information.
He was a little vibey, but if you want to call it that, I get why people think that when I say it, but I don't agree with being vibey to people. I'm a softie, I don't know that I would do that.
But did he turn around and show you the right chords?
Yeah. And I was still stumbling, but he kept telling me, and he was very blunt about it.
Well, that's probably why he gave you the opportunity to choose the tunes. And that's also a good lesson in that. If someone gives you the opportunity to choose the tunes, you should choose the tunes that you are very, 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 very comfortable on.
Apparently I wasn't.
Right.
And I could have been a little safer in my choices, but it did check me and show me what I had to work on.
Yeah.
I felt good about it, but I feel like I've seen this a lot with musicians where they get very like defensive about things like that, where they feel like you can't, like, being told something like that in the gig is kind of like inappropriate, or it's mean. But I thought outside the playing, when we were just hanging at the gig, ate our food and everything, he was really cool.
Yeah, that's not from an outsider's perspective. Like, did you have trust in his playing? Like,
he was really
then
good.
It's not vibey. He just cares about the music and wants you to carry your weight, and if you're not, show you where you're missing some things, and the fact that he was willing to, like, let's do that over again, here's the right changes, like, that's not, I don't consider that vibey. Like, I've seen vibey that I've seen people, I watched somebody just tell the bassist to stop playing. Like, just stop. I got this. Stop.
He might have done that to me once or twice, but like,
even then, though, it's kind of a memorable thing, and it may, like, I remember having that happen and just going home and working on those tunes until you feel comfortable with them again.
But he showed me what was up when he did it.
You can't ask for more than that. I couldn't. I mean, I think that's a very, like, he wasn't doing it. He was doing it in service of the music, which I think is the most important aspect. And he's not going to worry about how you might feel. about that. I think that's a very important thing to experience and get an understanding of.
Well, I feel like for me, if I had been offended by it, I feel like if I had reacted, I was cool about it after the playing. I was just like, thank you. Thank you for teaching me.
Yeah.
And I feel like I didn't make a good impression. He's not gonna call me anytime soon for a gig, but
maybe not. You never know who's listening or who's watching, and he might have heard something in you that he liked. And
he said some nice stuff, reassuring stuff later on too. But
not
I think
to me, he didn't about you.
Oh
but,
no,
right.
He wouldn't.
No,
he would probably say, "Don't call him." But I think the fact that I showed I wanted to learn, I think he appreciated that too.
Yeah.
And I think I think some people I've seen doing gigs like that don't think that way about it. Where like they, obviously you have people you like playing with, people you don't like playing with. But I do think there's like a lot of value in that like blunt honesty, because I'm not good at being like that with people. But I really appreciate it when someone schools me like that, if they know what they're talking about.
But you might be good, like you might not be old enough or had the years of experience to know if you're like that or not. But if you spent a good portion of your life working towards something, and then when you have an opportunity to express yourself on that level, and you feel that somebody else who's sharing the bandstand with you is actually taking away from what you've tried to spend your life doing, you might be that person, because you care about when you spend your life working on creating something and it starts to become something and somebody is thwarting you in some way, it's pretty offensive. Like, I'm not saying you were offensive, but it's in the service of the music, and when you play at a certain level and you work to achieve that level and somebody else is not taking it serious, I mean, compared to all the ways that could have gone down, I think that's the best you could hope for. Like, you didn't set out that day to annoy that person. It's just your paths met, and he gave you the opportunity to call the tunes, and then you don't want, like, I get it. You're like, I don't want to call that tune. Everybody calls that tune. But now in hindsight, if you get a chance to call the tune, man, call the tunes, because that's what he wanted. He wanted to meet you there and play. But he still took the time to patiently kind of go over something until you got it. That means he had some faith in you.
Yeah, like, I appreciated it.
I think it's a wonderful, like, I've had lots of different experiences. That's the only way you take that to be a bad thing is if you don't put service to the music first. That's the only way you take that. If you're offended because your feelings were hurt, if your feelings were hurt for the right reasons and you're upset about it for the wrong reasons, that's probably the problem. But you're not offended by it. You were like, man, right. This is helpful. Yeah, he was. Yeah, and he wasn't doing it to make you feel bad about yourself as a person. He's doing it to, like, this is how you get better at this. Yeah, and it helped. My confidence was shaken, but it helped reorient my expectations for that kind of a gig. Yeah. It was a little outside my comfort zone. I've played a lot of standards over the years and stuff, but I'd say, again, more of an electric bassist, maybe a little more comfortable in like the funk realm. Yeah. That's a bear of an instrument, the upright. Like that's a and let it be known, we did the same gig again, maybe 2 months after. Different restaurant, same deal though. Found out the night before, even earlier in the day. So I literally same singer, same keyboardist. I had to leave. It was like a lunch gig, so I had to leave really early, and I found out the night before. Yeah. And same thing happened. Singer was late. Got grilled. I got my. Did he call the same tunes that he gave you a little schooling on previously?
I don't remember. We might have done some of the same stuff, but it was like. It was different, but he like kind of almost grilled me on different stuff, and it was
cool.
But he was still right, just as right.
Did you have a good time playing with him, like hearing him play again?
I honestly don't even like. The singer was nice and all, and like he was a good singer, and he was cool about it. But the
singer showed up for the second one.
He showed up late both times, but it's like the fact that he showed up late. I like playing his gigs, but like I don't care about his professional opinion as much because he did that and because he's a good singer. But this keyboardist, despite grilling me, I like his playing a lot. I want to play with him.
There you go.
Like That's how it ended off. And it happened again. Probably shook my confidence even more the second time. I was in my head about rhythm and stuff, like just what he was schooling me on, like had me overthinking the stuff. But I think for down the line, it made me better.
Absolutely made you better.
And dude is a bad player.
I can think of quite a few situations that I've either witnessed or been part of, where you get called out for something. But I remember being in college and I went to Long Island University Brooklyn campus, and that was run by oh my goodness, Pete Yellen. So I had like 5 other Pete names go through my head. And Pete Yellen was a wonderful human being, saxophonist. And I went to school there for 4 years, and he had clinicians come in every month, and I got to play with some, the one in particular that I'm thinking of right now is Milt Jackson came in. Yeah. And if you don't know Milt Jackson's just a brilliant vibraphonist and just an astounding human being. And we were all just like in awe that he was even there. And everybody gets set up to play, and Milt's standing, not a very tall or wide individual. He's just not an imposing figure physically. Then when he played, like, it just was, you realized I had spent years listening to Milt. One of my favorite recordings was I think it's called Bags Meets West, the Wes Montgomery Milt Jackson recording, or on the Miles Davis one, the Giants, I think it's called Jazz Giants, got a green cover on it. Anyway, spent a lot of time listening to those albums, so to be in the presence of him was amazing. So he gets set up and he goes, "What tune you want to play?" And I thought that was just lovely to have Milt ask you, because so he has nothing to prove. He's Milt Jackson, and everybody was kind of demure and was like, "Well, whatever you want," And so he says, "What tune do you want to play?" And nobody could come up with anything. And the third time he says, "Listen, pick the tune." And I think he actually said the words, "I know every tune." It's like in every key. It was something so like, so I'm giving you a chance to call the tune that you want to play, or else I'm going to call it. And then all of a sudden, like Autumn Leaves, all the things, like people just started calling tunes. And but he like, nobody took it as a way of anything other than we're in the midst of a master, and he's going to play with us. So everybody was just amazed that he was kind enough to let the students pick the tune, but he wasn't there to make you feel bad about yourself or to let you know it was just like, this guy's going to play, and he played every tune that anybody called. He just played the piss out of it, and it was amazing. And that's, so there's some schooling you can get, but it wasn't in a way that harmed anybody. It was, he could have said, "Man, that was a lame solo you just took," or "Man, you don't know that too." He didn't do any of those things. His playing stood as the example, but he also was willing to let us know where he was at as an artist and as a human. And it was pretty incredible. And I've been in other experiences where people just went out of their way to make you feel lesser than. I don't enjoy that. Then again, if it's a great player doing it, I kind of still, there's some people don't handle things as, in a way that was conducive to learning, but there's probably still something to be taken from that.
Well, I think sometimes like people can be blunt.
You keep talking. I'm going to turn that.
Yeah, you do your thing.
Go ahead.
Well, I feel like even when someone is blunt about things in a way that is kind of like hurtful, you like, instead of being personally offended, when it comes to just something you want to get better at, you got to take it for what it is.
That's true.
Even if it hurts, it's like the fact that I had my feeling like I was a little shook on that gig, getting roasted by this guy, but it was good for me. And I think I care about the art more than I care about, oh, I hope he liked me on the gig.
Right.
I mean,
that's true. You do. And that's evident. If somebody didn't think that you did or didn't pick up on that, they wouldn't have taken the time to walk, to slow down a bridge and say, this is what's really supposed to, like, I think it's a very kind thing and a caring thing. That guy's probably a pretty good teacher.
Yeah.
If he was like, because he knows he's at a restaurant and probably you weren't like the featured act where 100 people are paying $40 to come and hear you guys play. You're at a restaurant. So he took the opportunity to there's no way that guy played any lesser than because you were in front of 40 people eating steak as opposed to 40 people at the Vanguard. But at the same time, he took an opportunity to kind of give you some really good advice.
Yeah, he tore it up. Yeah. And I think the thing I try to remember is just like, don't take it so personally. Just focus on getting better. Because people, I think for an artist, even if they come off cold, I think their main priority is to hear a good form of the art. So don't think, oh, they just don't like me. Think, oh, I want to gain their respect. And that's what I want to do if I ever cross paths with him again, which I'm sure I will.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like a similar situation is, I've been, I don't know if it's been mentioned on one of the episodes we released so far, but I've been doing open mics. I've been doing stand-up comedy. I'm an amateur. I wouldn't even consider, compared to what I do in music, I wouldn't even consider myself a comic yet. Mm-hmm. I've performed almost 70 times now, I think. I've been doing it about 7 months, and I'm new, but I'm feeling it out, and it's going fine. And there's I've seen other people in the scene do the mics and progress at their own paces. Mm-hmm. And there's one guy who comes to the mics, and when I first started seeing him at the mics, it didn't feel like he was hitting a lot of like punchlines in his act. I felt like he was trying to tell stories, but it was very long-winded. Mm-hmm. And then you talk to him in conversation, and he was very, very long-winded. Mm. And we just go on in conversation. And it was kind of clear about just to anyone who talked to him that he did that. And I'm too nice to call him out on it. I'll just let the conversational roll, and I'll just go with it.
That's a lot to do.
Yeah, well, and that's not me being nice about it and not saying anything. He's there to be a better stand-up, and after a certain point, other comics, there was one guy in particular who kicked it off, but people started to make fun of him, like making jokes about him being. If he had a bad set, they'd say that was unfunny. If he was being long-winded, they'd say like, "Wish he would shut up." Yeah. Rough stuff, and I felt bad. Mm-hmm. But the dude kept coming, and he adjusted based on that criticism, and he's getting funnier and funnier.
Yeah.
And I think I respect the hell out of someone who cares about the art above their feelings to take that criticism and turn it into something better, because he grew out of it, and I respect him more for it. And I don't want to see someone be mean to people, but sometimes I feel like I'm not doing anyone any favors by not saying something.
Well, it's kind of like Charlie Murphy, right?
How so?
In the Chappelle show where there was a guy that was, when he was talking about that old story where there was a guy in a restaurant like giving Eddie Murphy. This is back when Charlie was in charge of his security. Yeah. And he just kept talking trash to Eddie about Eddie, like when Eddie's there in the restaurant. And I think the guy was, he was in a wheelchair or something. And Charlie Murphy, according to Charlie Murphy, went over and gave that guy, like, either flipped him over or did something, like threatened him. And Eddie said to Charlie, like, hey, the guy, he probably just needs some help. And Charlie Murphy was like, I just gave him some help. Wait,
isn't that the couch story?
Was that the couch story with Rick James?
The Rick James thing with the couch?
I thought it was the other story.
Where he... But I
might be confusing them. It's been a while.
Like he crawls out.
Rick James crawls out,
and Charlie says, like, Eddie said, oh, I think he needs help, man.
Yeah.
And they, like, the cut is so perfect. The way, like, the timing of the way they.
I just gave him some help. Yeah. Yeah, that might be that. I thought it was this other story too, but either way, there's two ways to look at that. And the other way I was going to say was, as if your feelings are hurt because you think he hurt your feelings because he called you out, imagine how he feels that because you're taking, not you personally, but I mean in this situation, you're taking away from what they've spent their life doing. Like you're literally you're not taking serious what they're trying to do. And so he probably feels the same way about you that you feel about, you're worried about your feelings, but he's in service, or they're in service of the music. And so I find that the stage is a sacred place. It doesn't mean that you can't play tricks on each other or have fun with your fellow musicians, or that everything has to be very formal. Quite the opposite. But if you can't play, that it is offensive. Yeah. If you don't take it seriously enough to work on it, that's the number one thing you just cannot do. You can't expect people to take you seriously if you don't. Yeah.
And if you're playing with people who are heavy, you got to be open to criticism, and you got to have a thick skin.
I've had people handle it in different ways. Like I think I've told you this, but like when I was living in New York back in the 90s, I went to the Musicians Union jam session. I forget which day of the week it was, Monday or Tuesday, but I went down and I was excited to go down. Like I've been working on a couple of tunes that I really just wanted to play. And this was back, I was doing gigs regularly. Like I had a really good paying weekly cafe hit. We played from 9 to 11, and I made it was $10 each, 9 to 11, and a sandwich. So it was one of those real good paying New York gigs, but it was a chance to work on tunes every week. And that's what we did there. Me and whatever bass players or guitarists want to do it. And I remember going down to the Musicians Union, and Harold Mayburn was the pianist on that gig. And you would go up. I don't remember if you signed up or whatever it was, but I certainly was scared and nervous and all of those things. And I just wanted to play well. And I called Joy Spring. It happened to be a tune I was working on. And I loved that tune, and I'd been listening to the album for quite some time, and learned the tune from the album. Went down, played it, got to the bridge, totally just spaced on the bridge. Like just... This is on the head in. This is the first 32 seconds of the tune. The bridge comes. I missed the first. It's one of those bridges that if you miss the first couple notes, you can pretty much you could end up bailing on the whole thing. You're playing catch up. Anyway, then I took a solo, and I was I felt horrible the whole tune. Just inside I was mortified. Then afterwards, after we get done playing the tune, I thought Harold was going to come up to me and just who knows, and he actually just says, "Man, you sound good, you should come back again." And I just thought, what an amazing thing to say. Like, it was really supportive. I'm pretty sure he knew I'm pretty sure he knew that I did terribly on that bridge, but he was encouraging about it. And he could have come up and been like, "How dare you," and do all that. I've had that. But I'll never forget that moment, because I felt supported, and I felt like, okay, maybe there's something worth supporting doing what I'm doing. And I never forgot it. And it was it's one of those positive things that I think about fondly since that day. And I don't think I ever bumped into him again. I went to that session again, but he might've been just on it for that night. But it was enough support where, like, I went again, and I went home, worked on that tune again. But it could have gone the way that your situation went, because I definitely showed like that I wasn't as prepared as I could have been. And I just felt really lucky that you could call the tune. I think people, seasoned musicians who let you call the tune at a session is a really nice thing to do. You know, like I've been in the house rhythm section, hosted jam sessions, and it's an unnerving thing for everybody, if you know. So just, you know, like getting that option was, in hindsight, or I would tell you moving forward, if someone ever gives you the opportunity to call the tunes, call every one of them. Just call the ones you know, because those are the ones Like if he calls tunes that you don't know, and then you say you do know them, that can turn into I've seen that go awry as well. Like you're better off if you have the chance to do it, you call the tune.
Yeah. And you know, I think both sides of it are important. You know, I like seeing people who are encouraging and who are nice about it.
I love it,
and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But I also really value people who. I don't think everyone who says something cold is trying to be mean. I think what you
might be just perceiving it as cold.
Yeah, I think they're being honest, and I obviously I don't like the idea of vibing, but I think above all, being prepared for both is a realistic part of being an artist, and not just musicians, not just comedy. I think being prepared for both and having that thick skin and just wanting to learn is really important.
Any creative endeavor.
Yeah,
and you have to bring, as you're doing it, if you're in the nascent stages of building something, like if you say you're in the first 7 months of doing open mics, which that's unnerving to most human beings to think about getting up on a stage and it's just you and a microphone and people just waiting for you to make them laugh. That's got to be an unnerving situation. But it's about as you're doing that, it's about kind of being in earnest, working towards your craft. And I think most great artists recognize that in somebody else, and when they're trying to do that, and that's important. That's an important side of being a good instructor too. Yeah.
Well, the other thing I think like that got me started with wanting to do comedy is I was just writing material down for a while, trying to wrap my head around coming up with what I would talk about. Yeah. And the more I always loved stand up, but the more I studied it, I was kind of just excited to bomb. And I think that's the other thing. You can't be afraid to make a fool of yourself because that's how you learn.
Yeah.
And you can't be offended when people look at you funny because it's like you got a lot to learn.
or just being able to accept it and moving on from that. Yeah. As long as you don't let it paralyze you emotionally moving forward. It's like, that happened. Like, I mean, even Chappelle talks about that too. It's like he bombed at, I think, the Apollo, he said, when he was like 15 or something. And he's like, oh, that's it? That's what it's like? That's bombing? Or I can live, and like, he did all right.
Yeah. He's doing it. But, end of the day, I respect the hell out of anyone who's trying to do it. But I do think, as much as I hate to see it happen to him, a little butt kicking here and there is good for him.
It is good for them. And nothing comes from just being, if you're being supportive of somebody that's not taking it seriously, and you continue to be supportive in the sense that you don't acknowledge that they're not doing what's supposed to be done, you're not doing anybody any favors.
Yeah.
And it's important to be called out. Like if you're not taking it serious, it's too serious. You're talking about spending your life and earning your livelihood from a creative endeavor, and you're not going to live and breathe by that endeavor. You need to do something else.
Yeah, and that's
not offensive.
Prepared.
Yeah, that's not offensive. And if that hurts your feelings, because you're being confronted with the truth. Like it wouldn't, if you're in earnest working towards something, and you work every week, every hour that you have to put towards it, and you go out and it still falls flat, you still can feel good about what you're doing. But if you fall flat or you make some mistakes because you're just not prepared, because you don't care, there's not really a lot of room for you in the arts. You just have to take it more serious than anybody else. And if it's yourself, no one's going to work at that for you. That's just part of that journey.
Yeah. I mean, getting raked over the coals at a gig or bombing at an open mic, I mean, it hurts. Yeah. But it's still, I'm still always like coming out of it glad I did it.
Yeah, because you're learning what connects and what doesn't. Yeah. And that's how you're going to, I don't know if music, I don't know if it's like, I don't know if there's anything as immediate. Well, there's something very immediate from the punchline and the reaction.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if there's anything more immediate than that. Like, I don't know if music is quite that. I mean, that's immediate.
Well, I think with music, you can get, as long as you have the tune together, you get down with it, and you're still going to get your little reaction from the audience. And especially in a lot of music, you're not necessarily connecting in the same way where you're expecting an immediate reaction.
Sometimes you don't know though, until like the end of the night, and someone comes up to you and says that and expresses to you like something you did really touched them. Sometimes you don't know for an hour, like until after the set. Whereas if there's no laugh,
you know right away in stand-up.
It's with stand-up,
And I knew trial and error is important before, but doing stand-up has made me appreciate failure in a whole new way, because it's part of the process. And you get to practice at home in music. You can't practice stand-up until you're doing it.
Right.
And when you have to fail.
Yeah. And when it comes time for improvisation with music, I can speak to my own experiences with guitar and playing. Like, I remember, like I live for that reaction for like people that where you can actually touch and you can tell that so maybe it is as immediate, because I know when I'm having a moment and you can immediately hear it roars, like applause and or some kind of joyous expression happening in the audience. So, and I live for that. Like you can't practice. You can practice the language, but you can't. When it comes to improvisation, you can't practice the conversation. It's because it's a give and take, and you don't know what you don't know what anybody else on the stage is going to do at that moment, and that's what improvisation is. And you kind of walk that tightrope. But when you're a comedian, there's only one of you.
Yep.
It's all, if they didn't laugh, it's you. Like you can't blame, you can't hide behind the drummer, you can't hide behind the bassist, you can't, like, that's some solitary, you live and die by that, really.
But it's important. It's all you gotta love the little failure. Y'all gotta, if you want to be an artist, learn to love failure. I'm gonna say that, whatever the art is.
Yeah, and I think it's easier to love failure if you keep in mind what it is you're trying to do.
You're learning.
Yeah, you're learning, and when you can only. So really, is it I guess just accept that failure is not a 4-letter word. It's one of those things where you kind of that's along the road of learning what works and what doesn't. And it's not only is it important, it's inevitable. If you're really not good, unless you're just one of those just people that just can do it. There are those people.
Well, it comes in varying degrees, but that's great if you exceed your own expectations. And I've been doing comedy hasn't been soul crushing for me. I spent a while writing before I did it, and it's been going fine.
Yeah.
But I'm going in with the expectation that I shouldn't expect anything out of it until I've been doing it for 10 years.
That's
you shouldn't. You come in with low expectations, not to down yourself, but just to be open to learning.
Yeah.
But
and any great artist has to be open to learning. I mean, that's sort of what it is. I mean, you're in creative endeavors. You have to. It isn't written yet, so along the way, you have to fail, or you have to be open to getting some feedback and to moving. But if you keep in mind that you're moving towards this creation that only you can create, then if it's all in service of that, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But nobody owes you anything. Nobody owes you a laugh. No one owes you the download of your music. No one owes you a smile. No one owes you support.
Yeah.
And if you sit around being angry at the world because you're not getting that, that's you.
Yeah.
And that's also something you can pick up on. Like when people are behaving that way. Nobody wants to be around that person. I don't maybe that's harsh, but if you think the world owes you something when it comes to that, it doesn't.
Yeah. You aren't entitled to anything, and you can't expect people to just do things because it's what helps you. So like and subscribe to the podcast.
Yes, please.
Please comment on the video.
Yeah. Rate.
Yes, rate.
Give us a
rate
rating.
Our podcast.
Yes.
Like us, share us, follow us.
Help
us get a sponsor.
Polar.
Yeah, we talk about Polar in our episode with Scott. Check out the interview with Scott coming up. It'll be the next thing out after this.
Scott Petito, episode 4.
Yes.
Coming out in about a week.
Legendary. Yeah.
Oh, no. Probably 2 weeks.
Well, a week from
Danny Lewis.
When this comes out.
Yeah.
So we're not talking in the present. We're talking in the future right now.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
It's okay, Matt. Failure is good. You're
good.
learning. You're learning. Hey guys, seriously though, subscribe. You can email us at minkandthemonk@gmail or minkandthemonk@gmail if you have any questions for us or our upcoming guests.
Or minkandthemonk.com.
Yeah.
Is it the Mink and the Monk or is it minkandthemonk.com?
Mink and the Monk.
Minkandthemonk.com.
Yeah, you can comment on our stuff if you want. If you have questions for us, stuff you want us to talk about, we're more so talking about, I guess, like professionalism and all that kind of stuff. But we were going to try to talk about things that pertain to being an artist and how to navigate this wacky industry.
There it is. Yep.
Yeah, but we appreciate you listening, and we will have more stuff coming.
Great.
Yep.
Are we?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
Ooh, doggy. Corned beef hash.
Hashtag.